Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to the latest Same Old Arsenal podcast. It's me, Suburban Gooner Chris, joined by my partners in crime, as always, James Cook. How are you, sir?
I'm very well, thank you, mate. How's yourself?
Oh, I'm all right. I'm suffering a little bit. I think I've got the start of a cold, but I'm going to power my way through to discuss yesterday's 3-1 win. And another person who's also a little bit peaky at the moment is Amanda, Goonigal 1969. How you doing? You all right? How you holding up?
Oh, I was really looking forward to this because I haven't been on since the Tottenham game, and I just feel like the end of COVID. My brain's a bit fuzzy, so bear with me today. But it's nice to be back
Bear,
anyway.
bear with us all, indeed. It is nice to have you back as well. The trio is once again complete after a sojourn for Amanda on a big boat somewhere. So before we get into the details of the game today, I just wanted to remind everybody this podcast is of course sponsored by Ruth Beck Art. Ruth has a wonderful Etsy shop. We are getting into the period of the year in which I'm actually seeing Christmas trees in Sainsbury's and M&S and things like
Oh,
that, which
shut up.
personally I think is an absolute travesty. But if you want to be a bit more proactive around your Christmas stuff, I'm sure Ruth will start, well, she's got some great Christmas-related memorabilia, or not memorabilia, paraphernalia is the word I wanted to use. So check her out on the Etsy shop. It's Ruth Beck Art, and we're very grateful that she is the sponsor of this podcast. We're going to get into the details of the game yesterday, a 3-1 win against Southampton. So we'll talk through the rotation of the starting lineup. We'll get through the first half, second half. We'll do some predictions. I think Amanda will probably want to, before we do that, probably reflect on some of the results. Do you want to reflect on some of the results in a minute, Amanda? Or?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and I've got a few things that I want to say as well that I've written notes on.
Of course, of
Of
course.
course.
Before she does that, though, I'm going to hand over to Amanda just to get some thoughts, because obviously she's been away on the results and then some of her handwritten notes. But I've got a confession to make, wonderful listeners. Yesterday, I'm not drinking at the moment, and so yesterday I decided to partake in non-alcoholic beer. And my beer of choice in the Bedford, which is round the corner from the ground, was called Lucky Saint. And when I came out with Lucky Saint, everyone looked at me and went, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm sorry, I didn't think." And I got a text literally just now from somebody I go to the games with, Steve, who said, "When we went 1-0 down, all I could think about was you and that poxy Lucky Saint." So thankfully, my hijinks didn't impact the result. But yeah, I wanted to make that confession, get it out of the way, rip off the Band-Aid so we can move on with our lives. But before we move on and talk about the game, Amanda, any reflections on the matches that you missed or you watched but you weren't talking about, just for a minute or two, and then you've got something to say?
Yes. So as everyone knows, I've been away on honeymoon and I was watching it on the ship. I ended up watching the first half of Leicester with a Leicester fan. So, of course, that was interesting. Him sitting in his Leicester top. Very nice guy. He goes to Leicester home and away. He thought he was going to get hammered. So I left at half time to go and watch it with Carl. And we were 2-0 up. So I was sitting there, not cocky or anything. You know what I'm like. I don't work like that. But there was another Man United fan watching it with us as well. I thought it was pretty. We were going to go on and do more. Didn't happen, and it just sort of collapsed. But it was a great win in the end. No, just saying that we predicted against Atalanta, City, and Leicester, because obviously I wasn't here for the whole duration. And I actually predicted 2-2 at Leicester. We all went for a draw anyway. None of us got anything else right, but apart from that. But it is weird watching Arsenal with away like different fans. Like there was many United fans on the ship, and I have to say every single one were decent, which I'm shocked at, to be honest. But they were really decent, really complimentary of Arteta, complimentary of us. Bit old school United fans, not the new ones on social media perhaps. But obviously they despise City and would rather us win it. But it was weird watching it when you're in the middle of the ocean, and we ended up watching one game in our cabin, screaming, and like it's so stressful watching it on TV. I don't know what it is, boys, but watching Arsenal on TV or listening on the radio, I don't think I could even do that anymore. Is so stressful. However, didn't get ill on the ship or anything like that. Got back, was aiming to get to the Emirates for PSG. Carl went, I didn't feel right, didn't go. And then the next couple of days, I contracted COVID, so did he. And it just seems the whole world's gone down with it. So you just got to take care. Both Carl and I have got very different strains of it. Mine's nearly on the way out. Feel better, but I'm just pleased to be podding back, to be honest. And then obviously, I sold my ticket late Friday night to a Red member, and he was able to go, which I always like to not use Ticket Exchange anymore and transfer the ticket because Red members deserve to go as much as we do. He was over the moon, the guy, and we watched it yesterday. Anyway, moving on from that, and I'm looking forward to getting into talking about it. And thank you for all your. I can see all your comments. I'll put them up in a minute, but yeah, sometimes when you're not well, and there was quite a few Gooners that didn't go yesterday because a lot seem to have COVID. So all I can say is keep well, and that's it really. It's just good to be back. It was good watching you two. You did some really good shows, and I saw that a lot of people watched and everything. So well done for keeping it going and not burning the house down, you two.
Well, thank you very much for that metaphorical pat on the head. slightly little child pat on the head for us.
No, it was good to watch the show, actually. I was showing a few people on the ship the podcast as well, and they were quite interested. A couple of Americans have subscribed already, so that was really cool.
Nice. Well, if you have any questions, there's plenty of you. We've already got over 100 of you in the chat, and that's building. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in. Amanda will star them, and then right towards the end, we will see if we can get to them. James, let's shift our focus now to the starting lineup. Talk to me, because I'll be honest, I saw that starting lineup yesterday, and I thought, Arteta's a man who doesn't like a lot of rotation, and this feels like quite a lot of rotation for him. And I wrote in my blog this morning, this is a guy who famously wouldn't move Ben White out from the right back position, and we had to endure Rob Holding for half a dozen games before he eventually just decided to put Kivior in there, because he doesn't like moving players out and he doesn't like doing too much rotation. Was this there's a few things here I want to get your take on. Do you think this was a show me what you can do to the rotation players? Do you think this was I'm going to prove that I am going to rotate more this season? Or do you think there was another reason why he decided to rotate in? So we had Partey playing at right back. We had Jorginho in as the holding midfielder. We had Raheem Sterling playing as a left winger. And then we had Gabriel Jesus up top. So can I get some initial thoughts on the starting lineup from you?
I think it was pretty typical, Chris, because about 1:30-ish, I had my first bet in a long time. So I do like the occasional flutter. Last one I had was probably in the summer during the Euros, and I was like, right, Arsenal are going to really smash it today. I'm going to have Arsenal to win, both teams to score no, and Arsenal to score over three and a half goals. And as soon as I saw that lineup, I was like, yeah, that's pretty typical, because I just did not feel like that was a team that was going to score a lot of goals. And for me, I was a little bit disappointed in it, if I'm being entirely honest. I was excited to see Sterling start. I was excited to see Jesus start. But it was the midfield that was a big worry for me. I just felt it was a bit too passive. I don't think you need to be playing both Jorginho and Declan Rice at home to a team that just give up a shed load of chances. I'd have much preferred to have Declan Rice playing at the 6 and then to have had Havertz and Ranieri playing ahead of him. That would have been absolutely perfect for me. And then bring on someone like Jorginho with the last half hour to go if you're in a position where the game's already won. Partey at right back, I actually thought he was really good yesterday. As he was against PSG, I think he's really coming into some form at the minute, looking really fit, looking really good. He's a player that's obviously had his critics this season, but he's starting to come into some form. But I think, although I said I was excited to see Sterling and Jesus, in hindsight, I do think that was too many changes at that end of the pitch. It just felt very disjointed, and it was the same front three that started in the Carabao Cup against Bolton. And even in that game, I felt like Jesus wasn't overly convincing. I'm sure we'll go on to talk about him in his own little segment later. But yeah. I think you needed to play one of Trossard or Martinelli. And I just think it was just a few too many changes at that end of the pitch. We were just really lacking in something. I mean, Sterling and Jesus are two players that at the minute haven't played a lot of football. They're both quite low in confidence. I think that's clear to see. And I mean, although Southampton are a poor side at the moment, they are a Premier League side. And it's very different to playing a poor Premier League side than it is to playing a very poor League One side in Bolton. So yeah, I think that's all it was, mate. A few too many changes at that end of the pitch, and the midfield was just a bit too passive. It needed someone in there to just take the game by the scruff of the neck, play Ranieri, someone that's going to drive at the Southampton defence. But I mean, it's great that we've got a bench that can change games, and the players that we brought on. I mean, it was great to see, but I don't think, in answer to your initial question, it was Arteta saying, "Look, I'm going to rotate more and more." I think he, makes his own decisions, but I think it was very much a case of getting minutes in players' legs that he feels are going to be important players for us this season. Because, I mean, Sterling and Jesus are kind of our depth options up top, and we need them to get minutes. We need them to start playing football. So I think it was a case of that. And like you say, saying to them, look, go and show us what you can do. Show us why we should be considering you to play week in, week out.
Yeah, Amanda, it looks like you've got a point or two to make on that. One of the things I'll just build on James's bit before I get you in. And also, Amanda, a question for you. So you can build on James's bit in a second, but I want to get your view because obviously for once you weren't actually in the ground. So you got the benefit of what the TV and what the media were saying about that lineup. So I want to get your take on that in a second. But for me, I didn't mind the Partey at right back because I thought, look, we're going to have all the ball. It's going to be in their half. I think this is just Arteta trying to flood the team with as many progressive ball carrying, ball playing players and chucking a right back who's ostensibly going to play as a right midfielder or is going to play on as a right midfielder at times. I think that was probably just his thinking. We're just going to absolutely flood them. I think it was also interesting that Russell Martin went into a low block because they've not really tended to low block this season. I feel like Southampton are more of a mid-block possession-based team. They were still possession-based, but they dropped almost 5. They went into a back 5, which I thought was really interesting. And we just completely sort of snuffled out anything in the first half. I'll give you some stats after Amanda's got her points across on that first half because it was pretty dominant. But Amanda, did you want to build on James's point? And then also my question to you is around that, what the media were saying, because obviously James and I don't get the benefit of that in the ground.
Yeah, I mean, there was quite a lot of talking on Twitter and social media about, Sterling and Jesus and all that. And I look at it slightly different because Arteta obviously had worked on a formation this week that he thought was going to work. It didn't. We know that Sterling and Jesus were really not involved in the game enough. Now, Jesus, we all love and we all want it to work, but I do think time has come maybe that it's not working for him. But Sterling is the same situation we had with Havertz last year, where everyone's jumping in, going that he's not good enough. I rowed with quite a few people yesterday and said, you were here last year at the same point with Havertz. It's going to take time for players to bed in. Not every player hits the ground running. Okay, it may be a different sort of way of playing for him in a position, whatever it is. I'm going to give him time. So he didn't play very well yesterday, but my argument is Arteta wants to win the game. He puts a formation out he thinks is going to win it. People criticise it. We go and win it, and people are still criticising Arteta for it. He saw it wasn't working. He made the substitutions. I actually said at half time, I think we need Jesus and Sterling off. And what I can't say his name. Is it Winari? I don't know how you say it.
Yeah, Winari.
Winari on. And I felt like Jorginho was okay, but I do prefer Havertz up front and Declan in his normal position. However, he did change it and we did win. So I don't understand why people are getting on Arteta's back for choosing the wrong team at the beginning. He worked on a formation. He thought it was going to work. It didn't work. He changed it. If he didn't change it, then I would be the first to go, why has he not done that? He did do it. He made the subs at the right time. But what I think did happen was their goal woke us up. We completely changed after they scored. And yes, you do see it different in the ground, but I would like to go back to something that and I've always been against conspiracy theorists. Always. I think you're all mad on Arsenal, but I am starting to turn. I cannot understand when I watch football that pundits are looking at Arsenal. That is a penalty on was it Sterling? I can't remember in the first half. I've watched it 27 times. I don't understand why it's not a penalty. Now, I would say that for any team. Any team, that is a penalty. So that again, you don't see in the ground. Okay, we got away with it yesterday because we did win. However, that could have been something that we would have been sitting here going mental about today. I do feel that this conspiracy thing about us, because I'm telling you that generally listening to pundits during a game, and they're not pundits we're used to, are so against us. It's bizarre. It's so negative. It's bizarre. So yes, watching it on TV is slightly different. That's for sure. It was a penalty. I don't have a problem when he changes stuff, but I do prefer Havertz up front. And I would like to say something to all those Chelsea fans that have been laughing at us, what maybe for the first 6 to 8 months. We ripped you off. If you think he's not worth more than 65 million quid or whatever we paid for him, he's getting better and better and better. But I do want him up top. And I think when we changed that, it did change the game.
Yeah, well, we'll come to that. We're going to come to the second half stuff, the goals and stuff like that in a minute. I just want to look into the first half, James, just for a minute or two, so I'm going to hit you with some stats. Because actually, what happened in that first half is we basically restricted them to nothing. And so when you, to the point around the formation and the rotation, and what I was saying about Partey, when you look at how that played out, it sort of seemed to be the right thing to do, playing Partey in at right back when he was effectively, and think about the way in which we pressed and the amount of times that he won the ball high up the pitch, playing as a right back. It just made me think that, yeah, it makes sense. The only thing we were lacking, it just felt a little bit disjointed. And it's those, like Per Mertesacker, he used to call those automatisms. It was like the connections weren't quite there because you've got players that haven't played very much and things like that. Stats wise, we had nearly 70% possession in that first half. Expected goals 1.19 for us, 0.06 for Southampton. They essentially created nothing, no big chances. They had 2 shots. One of them was a Carl Walker-Peters, like just, little dolly over into David Raya's gloves, and that counted as a save, but it was essentially just catching practice for him. We had almost we had more than double the amount of passes that they did, 313 to 146. It was just a dominant display. It was just lacking that first goal. So let's bring us into any kind of final thoughts on some of those stats there, James, and that first half, and then let's talk about the first 10 minutes of the second half, because for me, and I'm going to take some credit for Bukayo Saka's. I thought Bukayo Saka was very good in the first half, and we were looking to try and find him constantly again and again and again on that right-hand side, which probably explains why Jesus was a little bit quieter. They didn't make much of the penalty, and obviously in the ground we didn't really talk too much about it. You just move on. So you can talk about that if you want as well. But yeah, talk me through any kind of final thoughts on that first half, and then the first 10 minutes before they got that goal.
I think with the players that we had out on the pitch, with the likes of Jorginho, players that are very good at keeping the ball, we were always going to dominate in terms of possession. But the problem that we had was we weren't doing anything with the possession. It was very much left to right, left to right, left to right, without any real potency. And I think the only shot we had on target was right at the end of the first half in the 42nd minute when Partey had a shot on goal, which was a pretty comfortable save for Ramsdale. And the only other chance I can really think of was that Jorginho one that went just wide of the post, and there was one where Sterling actually made a decent enough effort for himself, and then it was blocked quite well. But apart from that, we didn't really penetrate anywhere near enough in that first half. So yeah, it was disappointing. Controlled the game, but if you're not going to do anything with that control, then it doesn't really count for much. And it was a real shame because I wanted that team out there to kind of prove a point and say, we can win these games, we can make this sort of rotation and win games against teams that are potentially going to be fighting for relegation. But I just think it goes to show that in the Premier League, you can't really be making that wholesale amount of changes and just be expecting to win these games comfortably. It's just not going to happen with the level the league's at the minute. And in the second half, the first 10 minutes, I don't know, I just thought it was a little bit slow. I thought Southampton actually started at the better side, and I was a bit disappointed with that, considering, like we were talking about earlier, these players were there to prove a point. Arteta didn't make any changes. He was obviously showing faith in these guys. And we just didn't start it as well as we could have done. And we were, I don't want to say rightly punished because we dominated the game, but when you're not going to take your chances, or if you're not going to create chances when you have that much of the ball, then you always leave yourself open to conceding. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. Amanda, for me, their goal, Where do you pin the blame? Because I've got to be honest, I thought Sterling was a bit weak in the middle of the park in losing the ball. He put his hands up as if it was a foul. It wasn't really a foul, and they hit us on transition counter. And again, for the second week in a row in the Premier League, it just feels like we got maximum punishment for effectively like the minimum output of our opposition. Do you lay any blame at either Saliba or Raya, or was this a Sterling thing, or was this just? I don't personally think this was a absolutely worldy goal from Southampton like James Justin's last week. But what's your views on that, on the Southampton goal?
I think quite a few of our players went to sleep, but it was so typical of Arsenal. And I was only saying this to a couple of Man United fans, is that if we could just convert some of our chances, we'd be running away. We have so many chances and we dominated beyond in the first half. But really weird. Cole predicted this. He said, if we don't start taking a chance or two, they'll score first. It's so typical of Arsenal. But it wasn't a bad thing for us yesterday, Chris. It did wake us up and we completely changed. The subs and that goal obviously changed it for us. I wasn't there sitting there screaming at somebody. Sterling, I don't think it was a foul. It was a bit soft. It was just a soft goal to give away. And I think there was really strangely, there was pressure on Raya yesterday and there was pressure on Ramsdale because the whole thing was about them two. All the build up before you were at football, all the build up was about Ramsdale and how he felt and Raya and all that. And I think Raya probably felt a little bit under the spotlight. Sorry, as I said, my brain's not working.
Yeah.
Maybe a few went to sleep and, they took their chance. They didn't have any of chances. They took their chance. This is what we've got to learn. You could see the frustration because obviously we see different camera angles to what you're seeing in there, but they took their chance. And I think
Yeah.
they were more shocked than us. And to be fair, it was one of those games where I thought, here we go with Southampton again. We're becoming a little bit of a bogey side. But I personally think it was the best thing that happened to us. I really do.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because Arteta literally made the changes. There was a few of us saying this isn't quite working. We need to do something. He made the changes like 1 minute after the goal was scored. So clearly it was a case of, right, I've seen enough. Time to make some moving. Can you get Carl's question actually up on the thing? Because we might as well answer that one now whilst we're here. Because it's about Gabriel Jesus. Obviously, Jesus hooked and Sterling hooked. Trossard coming on and Martinelli coming on, and Martinelli making Martinelli and Saka really, for me, were the stories of yesterday. Perhaps Havertz as well to bring us level, literally just a minute or two after the subs, James. But do you think? So I've got two questions for you. Answer Carl's question, which is: do you think we've outgrown Jesus? Because let's talk about the fact that he's gone off and really 57, 58 minutes where we didn't really see very much at all. Yeah, it was on 60 minutes. Oh, was it on the subs were made after we scored? I think they were. No, Jesus and Sterling were off on 57 minutes, and Martinelli and Trossard came on. Yes, so question from Carl, James, which is, have we outgrown Jesus? And then let's talk about the instant impact and instant respond. We were behind for about 4 minutes, so it wasn't really too worrying, was it, in the end?
No, not at all. And starting on the Jesus point, I'll start by saying I really like Gabriel Jesus as a person. I still remember his first interview with Arsenal where he seemed so excited to be here. He was talking so much about how he loved talking to Arteta, Edu, and I really thought that this is going to be a guy that's going to take us to another level. And in the first couple of months of his Arsenal tenure, fantastic, really, really good. But we've only really seen that Gabriel Jesus on very rare occasions since. And I don't want to sound like I'm being a bit hyperbolic here, but I think in this current form, he doesn't start for a lot of Premier League sides as a striker. I think he's got a place at Arsenal at the moment as a winger, as someone that can come on, work hard when we're seeing a game out, when we're up against it. Like City away when he came on, someone's going to work hard, track back. You know what you're getting with Jesus. I'm not for 1 minute questioning his work ethic or, ability to make things happen. I think he tries extremely hard to try and be unpredictable, and I think that's kind of a bit of a hindrance for him in a minute. He's trying a bit too hard to do something slightly out of the ordinary, and I just feel like a lot of the decisions he's making are wrong. I also think there's slight element of he's not the main man at Arsenal anymore, and he wasn't the main man at City, and his form at City towards the end. I mean, he was always a fairly reliable player, but I think a lot of City fans would say he was, when Haaland came in, that's when he left. But before that, he was never quite the main guy, and I feel like he's starting to recognise that that's happening at Arsenal now. And I think we don't really talk about him as being a confidence player, but I think he very much is a confidence player. And the fact that he's not kind of getting that love is probably weighing on him a little bit. I do think a goal changes everything, but it's just I don't see him scoring at the minute, and that's the problem. I even thought, like I said earlier, in the game against Bolton, he didn't really convince me enough to look at him and think this is a guy that should be starting. And reality is he's our third choice striker at the minute. Havertz number 1, Trossard number 2, Jesus number 3. And I think the difference between Trossard and Jesus when Trossard came on was chalk and cheese. I thought he offered so much more. We looked so much more fluid. I just feel like Jesus slows the game down a little bit. And I don't want to... I really do feel like, listening to myself back, that I'm being incredibly harsh on him. I know the quality he's got. I know what he can offer to this Arsenal team. But for the current way we're playing, I'm choosing Trossard every single day of the week over him. But I think the good news is for Jesus that there are opportunities where he's going to play later this month. We've got Shakhtar in the Champions League. I'd start him there. We've got Preston in the Carabao Cup, another opportunity to start there. If he can grab a goal, assist, just have a good performance, then we're going to be talking about him as a player that can offer a lot, because he's an important player. He's a guy that can play on the left, the right, up top. But I'm just not convinced by him as a striker at the minute. When you look at the difference between him, Trossard and Havertz, it's glaringly obvious. And in answer to the second part of your question, in terms of the substitutes, I mean, it's just great that we're able to bring on players like Marino, Martinelli, and they're effectively able to change the game. I mean, we despite the injuries, have still got a very, very healthy squad. And it goes to show that, even with players like Zinchenko, Timber, Ben White, a shed load of other guys that are missing, Martin Odegaard, of course, we haven't even spoken about him. We're still able to get wins. And I think you've got to give a hell of a lot of credit to this Arsenal team for this past month where we've been without Odegaard and we've got the job done. I think we can all say this has been a really good start to the season.
Yep. It's been a really, really good start to the season. Like, apart from that last-minute goal against City, which would have made this almost the perfect sort of start to the season, because I'm using the Brighton game as a moment in time of just refereeing conspiring against us. But we're parking that because we're talking about Southampton right now. For me, like the way in which we are rocking up with injuries and suspensions against some of these teams is really, really good. And the instant reaction from Kai Havertz, Bukayo Saka winning the ball high up the pitch. We were winning the ball high up the pitch quite a lot. And part of it was because Southampton had sort of shrunk into a low block, but we're still playing their sort of possession-based football, which meant that we could win the ball back. I mean, I mentioned it, Partey won it high up the pitch, Amanda, in the first half. And then Bukayo Saka wins the ball high up the pitch. It gets an assist, but really it was Kai Havertz that made that goal, wasn't it? Because Saka wins the ball, brilliant. Nice simple pass to Havertz, takes a couple of touches, and then he absolutely leathers that in off the post. And they are some of the best goals, the ones that go in off the post. Do you want to talk to me a little bit about Havertz? 6 goals now this season. I think I said it last weekend when I was with Dave Seeger and Paul in Invinciblog. I think that he's going to hit 20 goals this season, and this is convincing me more and more. So, Amanda, do you want to do a minute or so on the goal, and then James, any kind of bits if you want to build on the goal or any thoughts about Havertz as well?
Yeah, no, I'd just like to say about Jesus, I agree with Cookie on this. Just play him in those games. And Trossard, I love Trossard as a super sub. And Martinelli, well, as I said, people take time coming back from injuries. Feels like we've got our little Nelly back now, doesn't it? Look at that goal. Geez, we'll talk about that. Havertz, Saka. I argued with so many people yesterday about Saka being world class. I'm sorry, he is. That ball to Nelly. Anyway, sorry, I'm diverting because my brain. Havertz will get around 15 to 20 goals. And when you work for somebody, I often say this, that believes in you, then you believe in you. And look at it. He's flourishing, isn't he? Now right. So say this time last year, what teams would have come in for Havertz? Nobody, would they? Not this time last year. Now, who would come in for Havertz? Most teams. And that's what I love about his progression, his work under Arteta, his teammates believed in him. That time they made him take the penalty to get his first goal last season. I love this. I love our team spirit anyway. He did leather the ball, and it was great to see. And he will get 20, Chris. I'm with you on that. I love it. I just love our team spirit, but I do like him up top. And as Barb's has just said, and I agree with this, Kai is a real warrior now. He believes in himself. He believes he can get. I like he's a little bit, what's that word like?
There's a
Not
bit of
shit
needle in him,
hungry.
isn't there?
Yeah, he reminds me of that player that always used to score against us. Not Drogba, the other one, Costa, I think it was. He gets involved, but he's not seen as a dirty player. A bit snidey. We need that. We haven't had anyone like that for ages. And just going back on what um, James was saying about Erdegaard, it's gone very quiet. I am very worried. However, we are still winning. So I'm concerned that he's out for 6 months and no one's telling us. Um, Havertz is just blossoming and I love it. And Havertz and Saka together, wow, just brilliant. And yes, and I think Fiona, a lot of people have mentioned Calafiore. I think we should mention him as well. What a start he's had. Now, he's someone that has hit the ground running. Every player's different. So I just want everyone to give Sterling a chance. If it doesn't work, like for me, it's not working for Jesus now. I'll call that out. Yeah, he shouldn't really be near the first 11. Sorry. But I'm loving Havertz, and I do, and I'll say it again. We've ripped Chelsea off for 65 million quid.
Love it, James. Any final thoughts on Havertz, and then let's do the let's come to the weekly portion of the show in which we all just wax lyrical about Bukayo Saka. What a footballer! And you can lead us up to that Martinelli goal as well, because his cross was a peach, but Martinelli's run also timed to perfection. But kind of final thoughts on Havertz before we want to talk about when we went ahead.
I think if it wasn't for Bukayo Saka taking his game to an entirely new level, which I think is crazy in itself, because this guy consistently, season after season after season, raises the bar for himself. And he started this season like an absolute house on fire. But if it wasn't for him, I think there's an argument to be made that Kai Havertz is probably Arsenal's most important player at the minute. I know it's a big statement, but I feel like so much of our good play goes through him. And what I saw from Havertz yesterday was a guy that just said, yeah, I'm just not having this. Like, I'm going to take this game by the scruff of the neck, do it myself. And we see a lot of goals from him where he's kind of in the right place at the right time. You know, he's 5 yards out from goal and it's a tidy finish. This was him just saying, I'm taking it on. And it was a great finish. We've not seen many goals like that from him. Van Persie certainly would have been proud of that one. Like, it was a really, really, really good goal. And it wasn't just that goal. I mean, there was a time at the end of the game where we were 3-1 up, and I'm not sure if you guys saw it, but he was just fighting for absolutely everything. Like, he is putting himself about in every single situation. And he is a completely different player to the one that we were giving a sympathy penalty to against Bournemouth last season. He just looks so confident in his own ability. And it's not a fluke, because he's been doing this for a long, long time now. I'd say all of 2024, and we're coming to the end of it now, he's been fantastic. You know, I can't really think of his last bad performance, and that's credit to him as well, because he's kind of going back into midfield at the minute, and he's having to play a role that I don't think he's necessarily comfortable with. But he's just fantastic. He's such a good player, and I'm just so glad that we've been able to get the best out of him. And I think he's one goal contribution away in the Premier League now, from equaling his tally at Chelsea, which just goes to show what an impact he has had at Arsenal and how good of a job Arteta has done in terms of getting the best out of him. And then in terms of the substitutions and us going 2-1 up, I mean, it's just great to see Martinelli coming back into form, isn't it? Saka with that fantastic cross to the back post, really similar to that goal we got at Stamford Bridge last season by Trossard. Martinelli, right place, right time, stabs it past Ramsdale. And I'm so happy for him because, again, similarly to Havertz, aside from the goal, just brilliant. Like, his all-round play, absolutely fantastic. Wants to make things happen, drives at defences. And that's something that someone like Sterling can't really offer at the minute. I mean, again, just polar opposites in terms of their value to the team in a minute. Martinelli is just so good at just working really hard, not getting muscled off the ball, driving at defences, and just having that knack of popping up in the right place at the right time. I mean, it's not like he hasn't had chances this season. The problem with Martinelli has been that he's not been putting them away. but he's always had that ability to be in the right place at the right time. So, yeah, really, really pleased with his performance. Delighted with Havertz. And, yeah, great to see us go 2-1 up.
Yeah, and it was a really good goal. There was a few minutes of the standard when you're in the stadium having to wait around because of an offside. I actually thought that they were talking about the Martinelli being offside, but when you actually watch it, like Martinelli comes from about a yard behind the defender. So I was like, I don't know why they are even checking it, but the check was based on Marino, who, by the way, Marino, I thought came on, did 30 minutes. He won 3 or 4 really good duels high up the pitch. I think that's going to be a feature of our football moving forward, us winning the ball higher up the pitch just to stop teams before they can properly set themselves. So that's obviously a tactic that we're starting to employ. And I'm looking forward to seeing that a little bit more, because it's a lot nicer when you win the ball higher up the pitch rather than, on the edge of your own penalty box.
Can I just say something about the offside, that it took so long that we knew the goal had been given way before you did, because the press get to hear about it. I literally went and looked for a press man, and they went goal given. You lot were still sitting there, and it was going on and on and on. That is awful. I think it was for Martinelli being offside, if I'm honest.
No, it's
I said
Marino.
it.
I've seen
Oh,
the
was it
exchange.
Marino?
Yeah, and do you know
Um,
what is interesting? I don't know why, but they show it in the ground now. They have a little text description. Did you see that, James? Like on the VAR, about 5 minutes after the goal, they actually explain the decision making was based
oh,
on Marino being offside and whether or not he was interfering or not, and they had judged that he hadn't interfered. So that's a new feature, which at least is something. I mean, the goal, we'd been playing 5 minutes of football after the goal had been scored, and then they'd kicked off. So, but it's good to at least see that.
no, it was good, and it was lovely. It was an absolute peach of a ball from Saka. We need to talk about
Mm.
Saka. I mean, uh, what a human he is! What a player he is! I've got a picture of him on my wall above here. It just gets better and better and better. Do you two boys? Because I keep arguing about this. In your opinion, and obviously, when someone says someone's world class, that is based on your opinion. There isn't a level to go, right, he's world class, he's gone above that. My opinion is he's world class. My opinion is he'd walk into any side. What do you think on that, Chris?
Absolutely, of course he would. I'll hit you with some numbers actually. So 4 years ago, he got 19 goals and assists. 3 years ago, he got 26 goals and assists. Sorry, 2 years ago, he got 26 goals and assists. Last season, he got 34 goals and assists. Prediction time
Wow.
from me: he's going to get more than 40 goals and assists this season. He's going stratospheric. We did the one in, one bang out, one bangs over the summer, and there was a few people that said Bukayo Saka is going to be the one. He's already world class. He's going to the next level. We're going to be talking about him, providing he stays fit. We're going to be talking about him alongside, in terms of goal contributions, alongside Haaland and Salah. I think that he is, if he continues what he's doing, he will be in for a massive shout of Footballer of the Year. James?
So why do you think then that opposing teams cannot see that he's world class?
I think it's because he manages his own he manages himself in games. There's times where you see him sort of almost going in second gear or third gear, and so the result of that is that at times people think, well, what's he doing? But he's an output machine. You can only see the first half and how we just essentially got the ball to him as often as we possibly could, and he had his fullback on toast. James, I don't know what you think.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a debate. He is world class. I mean, we've got Mo Salah in the league, but if it wasn't for him, then who is a better right winger in the league? I'm not sure if you guys have seen Jamie O'Hara saying that Lamine Yamal and Cole Palmer are world class and Saka's a level below them, which is just
Jamie
absolute,
O'Hara being
clickbait.
Jamie O'Hara.
absolute nonsense. And look, I'm not saying that Cole Palmer and Lamine Yamal on current form are not world class, because they're Cole Palmer, what he's doing this season is exceptional, but Bukayo Saka is world class in his own right. And it's not just the goals, the assists, it's his all-round play that makes him a world-class footballer. Just look how strong he is. There were moments towards the end of that game where he was in the right-hand corner of the pitch, just bullying that Southampton fullback, just winning the ball off him time and time and time again, just by using his body, using his strength. But then he's got the output as well, whether it's a set piece, whether it's a delivery in open play. And then just that goal just sums him up. Right place, right time, always hungry for more. Brilliant finish with his weak foot. What can't he do apart from score with his head? You know, he is a brilliant, brilliant footballer.
Yeah, I love him. He's our star boy. He is the centre in which our all of the good stuff that we do happens, and he's getting better and better. I will say this one thing: I actually don't care about the nonsense about world class or not world class. I honestly zone out when people talk about that. As you said, Amanda, it's a subjective term, which is kind of irrelevant to me. The things that matter to me in football are: how well are we playing? Do I enjoy the style of football? Do I enjoy going to games? Do I have great memories? Do Arsenal enable me to have great memories? Do we win trophies? And have I been able to see that? And yes, the answer has been yes. And the only thing that we need to do now at the end of the season is have a nice, shiny silver trinket, and preferably one of the really good ones, Premier League, Champions League. We get that. And I don't care. People can, Jamie O'Hara can say what he likes. It is irrelevant to me. But Jamie O'Hara knows that you look at that Spurs front line, they are not even fit to lace Saka's boots. Fantastic goal, Amanda. Do you want to talk about the goal? Do you want to talk about the goal at all? Because I know you haven't had your say, so go on.
No, I do. It's just that I was saying about Jamie O'Hara knows what he's doing because we're all talking about him. So let's not discuss JOH any longer because he's doing it. He reminds me of Adrian Durham doing it. The goal, wow. I mean, I'd already said he was world class and arguing people. When he sent that ball over to Martinelli, exquisite. Absolutely exquisite to Nelly's toe, and then I mean, what a goal by Nelly as well. And the thing is, it really, again, I'll say this because people were on Martinelli's back as well because he had, he'd come back from injury and he hadn't been Martinelli. You just got to give people time sometimes, and he knows what he's doing. Arteta, he knows exactly what he's doing with players that come back from injury, and everyone's different, of course. It was beautiful. What a goal! Absolutely loved it. Absolutely, one of my favourites, and that should be goal of the month in my eyes for the football alone. Thought it was fantastic. It just put a big smile on my face, and I wonder O'Hara thought then. Not that I'm going to mention him anymore.
Well, we don't need to talk about that at all. I'll hit you some final sort of stats because we can talk. Do you want to talk about the Saka goal, Amanda? Because it was a great finish. I thought Trossard actually sort of cocked it up a little bit because he had two options there. He could either go wide left to Martinelli or wide right to Saka, and I think ultimately it's fallen to Saka, and it's a really good finish with his weaker foot. But Trossard his blushes were saved there a bit because he tried a step over that just didn't really go right. Do you want to talk about that? And then, James, any final thoughts on that? And then I'll give some stats.
I did. Sorry. I thought you meant I was talking about the other goal. I told you my brain is not working. It was a bit of luck, wasn't it? Came off a Southampton player. And then he just took his chance. And if anyone deserved the goal, it was him. For me, he was man of the match for me. I mean, he's just getting better and better. I don't even know what to say anymore about Saka. He's like a Declan Rice, isn't it? Just fantastic. We're so lucky. We are so lucky that Bukayo Saka plays for the Arsenal. I just absolutely love it. It was a slight bit of luck. He took his chance and bang, he got his goal. I just feel that the substitutions and the goal woke us up and we realised who we were, what we were doing and how much we needed to win. And I just want to say that if you watch the Fulham City game, Fulham should have beaten City. If they'd have taken their chances, Fulham could have beaten City easily. It's just they get so much luck, City, they really do. However, we're on par with them now, so we just got to keep going. You're on mute, Chris.
I'm mute. I knew I'd do that.
Mute.
James, final thoughts? It's because somebody the other week told me off for typing too loudly. So, James, any final thoughts on that Saka goal and Trossard?
Yeah, I'm just pleased we made it 3-1 because 2-1 isn't the most convincing of score lines. This could be a season where goal difference is important, as we always say. And 3-1, it's a comfortable scoreline. And I think that does reflect how good we were in the second half because I do think we created a lot more chances. But I suppose the worry for me is just that first half because I don't think we created anything really. And I just think it goes to show that, like I said earlier, we can't make that many wholesale changes. You don't need to be playing Rice and Jorginho at home to Southampton. Let's give Nwaneri a go. Let's, play Marino from the start. We've got options to do it now. And I would like to see us be a bit more bolder in these games. And I think the one thing I'd end on, Chris, is that I actually feel a lot more comfortable watching us away from home than I do at the Emirates at the minute.
Really? That's an interesting
why?
one. I think with the Mirror
Yeah.
Cup. Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably because teams come at us, particularly teams lower down the league, come at us, or they at least do a little bit of coming at us under their own fans. So if we take, whenever we're playing Southampton at St Mary's, guaranteed Southampton won't sit in a low block like that. They'll try and be a little bit more ambitious with their attacking intent, and that will create more spaces for us. So that's probably why where the comfort comes from. I wouldn't say I feel comfort when we go away to Tottenham or even in Man United in a few weeks' time. I think it's in November when we go there.
We got them at home.
Newcastle, those sort of places. Oh, we got them at home, have we?
The thing is,
it's an interest.
Sorry, boys. I just think that every team that's going to come to us, apart from a few, are going to do that. They're going to park the bus. They're going to low block. They want to come away with a point. If Southampton would have got a point yesterday, they'd have felt like they won the league. So that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So it's down to us to break that down, and we're not great at breaking that down. So I get what you're saying, Cookie, about going away from home, because teams won't play like that away from home. And then we should, if we're on our day, take them to pieces. So I get what you're saying. However, we've got some big games coming up in the bloody international break again. What is this? Another break already? October.
Yeah. Well, we all know how we all feel about that. Interesting that you were saying, James, you're pleased that we made it 3-1 and it reflected the scoreline. So we ended the match on an XG, expected goals, of 3.1. So that's about on par. Southampton were on 0.6. We had a load of shots, actually. There was somebody that in the chat, I can't remember who it was, said that in the last 2 games we've had 65 attempts at goal. We had 29 yesterday, only 6 on target though. So there was quite a bit of sort of, I remember that in the first half there was a Gabriel one that went over, there was a Saka one that went over. So shooting boots weren't quite on. 60-40 possession, 503 passes out of 588 that we actually completed. So an 86 accuracy. Southampton, 336 of 400, so they're 84% accuracy. So Southampton ball playing, that just plays it out what we've been talking about beforehand. A ball playing team that didn't have a lot of the ball. So this was a game in which we had to be patient. We had to do the business. On the Marino stuff, James, I think that he's easing him back in. I think we'll probably see him start against Bournemouth, which is our next game after the internationals, because he's given him sort of 15, 20 minutes against Paris Saint-Germain. He's given him 25 minutes plus injury time yesterday. I've got a feeling that probably when we get back, my hope is that Ødegaard, who is apparently going to be back in training soon, my hope is that they're earmarking that midfield three that we finally have been expecting to see all season, but haven't been able to because of injuries and suspensions. Rice, Ødegaard and Marino. That will be quite interesting to see how Bournemouth, how we cope, but how Bournemouth cope as well. So that's the game. Again, if you've got any questions, please feel free to pop them in the chat. And for the last 5 minutes, in about 5 minutes time, we will talk about that. Amanda, you mentioned it's a horrible international break now, but thankfully we go into it being on a winning streak, and then we've got the Bournemouth game straight afterwards. Do you want to do some predictions? Let's skirt over the fact that there's a tedious international break. Do you want to do some predictions or get some of those predictions, and then maybe we'll answer a few questions before we wrap up today?
Yeah, we've got Bournemouth at 5:30 away on the Saturday, and then we play Shakhtar on the Tuesday. We're hoping to do a post-game show that weekend, so let's just do Bournemouth. It's Bournemouth away. Cooks, what's your prediction?
4-0.
So 0-4, yeah. Chris?
I think we are going to win that 2-0.
Okay, 0-2. And I'm going 1-0.
Sorry to interrupt. With the Bournemouth thing, gut feel on that is that we do like going to Bournemouth, but they are a decent side. And yeah, I don't feel we'll absolutely smash them like we have in the last 2 seasons, James, but I do feel like defensively we should be strong enough, assuming there's no major injuries over this international break, because let's face it, we've had one of those already with Ødegaard, so we can't count our chickens. Sorry, Amanda, go on.
I just had to mute because I was coughing. So we've all gone for wins. 4-0 James, 2-0 you, and 2-1 me. Should we do some questions now?
Yeah, go for it.
Unless you've got anything else. Hold on. Right, let's do. Hello, Simon. Simon Lester wants to know, when everyone is fit, what 3 start in midfield? We must assume Ødegaard and Rice are 2 of the 3. Good problem to have now. And I was just about to ask that when you mentioned about Marino. You got Partey as well. So it's really interesting.
I think I've already answered that question, James.
I think I'll go against the grain slightly. On current form, you've got to start Partey, I think. So Partey, Rice, Ødegaard, going into big games against the likes of Liverpool, United, that's probably what I'd want to be my midfield 3. But I think Marino will work his way in.
Okay. I'm a little bit between you two. I do feel Partey's got it, but he's played well. But Marino, I would like to see as well. So, okay. Right. John Rowe. Hi, John. Good morning to all. So when we play Liverpool, who would be your fullbacks, if fit, obviously? White, Calafiori or Timber? Chris?
No mention of Tomiyasu there. And let's be honest, Tomiyasu has played the last couple of seasons against Liverpool up against Salah. And do you remember it was 2 seasons ago when he kept Salah completely quiet? The reason why I'm talking about Tomiyasu is he came on yesterday. He's got another few weeks. If he can get some minutes under his belt, it wouldn't surprise me to see that. I think that the thing is, Calafiori, this is a nice problem to have because Calafiori was winning the ball and he was winning his duels yesterday. Timber wins the ball and wins his duels. And Tomiyasu is a duel merchant. So I'd have any of those 2. If I'm going to pick one, I'd go on history. So I'd play Tomiyasu at left back up against Salah. And I would play probably Timber on form. But it hurts me to say that because I love Ben White.
Cooks?
I don't know how you can drop Calafiori at the minute. I think he's absolutely sensational. The only slight worry I've got with him is he does have that tendency to occasionally get beaten. And against Salah, that would be a concern. But I think I've seen enough from him so far to think that he should kind of be our starting left back. No one's talking about Zinchenko. Guys, come on. Where's the love for Zinchenko? No, I'm going with Calafiori and on current form, Timber at right back.
Really? Okay, well, I would go with Ben White at right back and Calafiori at left back. Have Tommy and
Can I just jump in on that?
Timber on the bench.
Can I jump in on that? And Carl makes a really good point. And this is, I think Carl and I are aligned on this. The problem with Calafiori, as we saw yesterday with that number 33, was it Dibbling or wherever it is. And also we've seen that against Hakimi in midweek against PSG. Calafiori isn't like, he's a brilliant, he wins his duels. He's a great footballer. Don't get me wrong, I love him, but he's not the quickest in the world. So for me, that's why I'm thinking Tomiyasu, he is rapid. When he's fit, he is rapid and he can keep up with Salah. So that's why I went for it. So just sort of showing my workings a bit there. But next question.
But it's interesting, Chris, because not everyone's saying different. And it's a lovely position to be in that we have the choice as well. So look, Simon's saying, I think a fit Timber is virtually undroppable. You've got Albrecht, saying Timber and Cala for me too. You got Fiona saying White and Calafiori, which is what I would go with. So yeah, lovely, lovely position to be in that we're discussing this. Right, let's see what else we've got. Carl said, has Partey shown enough at the start of the season to be offered a new contract? Cooks.
Well, I know we've seen those reports coming out that he's potentially going to be offered a new one. I think we've got to be really careful with this, just because my worry is at the end of this season, he'll be 32 years old. Do I have total faith that a 32 to 34-year-old Thomas Partey is going to be more of an asset to Arsenal than a hindrance? I'm not sure. I think at the minute, he's the fittest he's been at Arsenal, and I think he's playing some of the best football he's played at Arsenal. But if it was me, I would part ways at the end of this season and look for a long-term successor, just because I do not want Partey blocking the pathway for somebody else to come through, and that's what I feel he'd be doing.
You're nodding, Chris. Are you in agreement with Cooks?
Yeah, this season has to be the farewell tour for Thomas Partey. Let's hope that he stays fit. Let's use him. Let's be thankful. But he's a player that's been a little bit too injury prone. He's getting older. He's going to want big cash as well. Let's just move him on in the summer and look to the next big signing.
You are both looking like you're coming down with colds. I hope you're okay, both of you. It is spreading like wildfire. I would give him a year extension if he would take it. I'd give him a year, but no longer. So let's go for more questions. Okay, so we touched on it a little bit, but Diane wants to know, what do you all think of Sterling's performance yesterday? So why don't we do it out of 10? Because I think it'll be pretty low. And then hopefully in weeks to come, he'll do a Havertz and it'll be way up there. So, Cooks, out of 10, what do you think?
4, if I'm being totally honest with you. And I don't want to sound like I'm being overly harsh. I do think between him and Jesus, he was the one that was slightly better. I do think he put some good balls into the box in the first half. There was that moment that he fashioned for himself where he kind of ran from the halfway line, cut in, and then if it wasn't for a good block, that could have gone in the back of the net. But he was weak on the goal that Southampton conceded. That wasn't a foul. He was just very poor in that moment. And he's not as involved in the game as I would like him to be. I feel like he's kind of on the periphery, which was a big problem for him at Chelsea last season. I don't share the opinion that he's going to be like Havertz and explode. I don't think that's going to happen. If you look at his age profile, if you look at what he's been as a player in the last 2 to 3 seasons, I don't think there's any indication that is going to happen. With Sterling, I don't really want him starting Premier League games. And this was the sort of game that I wouldn't have minded him starting so long as we didn't have Jesus in there as well. Like I said before, I think it's too many changes. I think if you're playing, say, Sterling, Havertz, Saka as a front three, I'd like to see how that would work at some point because I think that could work to his benefit. But I just think for me, at this current moment in time, he's a guy that I'm quite happy coming on in the last 20, 30 minutes of games when we need to see it out or we need something a bit different because you know what you're getting with him. He's, pretty much a safe pair of hands. I'm kind of contradicting myself by saying he was at fault for the first goal, but, he's still coming into form. He's still coming into confidence. He needs minutes ultimately. And again, Shakhtar at home, Preston away. He should start both of those games in my opinion. But if we can get him to, a solid 6.5 out of 10 on a routine basis, then he'll be a good asset for us. But I think, you're clutching at straws if you think he's going to turn into Havertz and just turn things around. I just don't see that happening.
We shall see. Famous last words, Cooks. Chris, the general in the chat room is 3 to 5. So where are you going?
I think that's a little bit harsh, 3 to 5. So let me show my workings. First half, I thought a couple of decent runs. He followed up on the Partey shot, which Ramsdale saved and nearly got to it. So I thought I would have given him a 6 in the first half. Second half, for the 15 minutes that he was on, probably a 5. But I'd probably be leaning between the two. But because I think he was at fault for the goal, I'll go on the lower end and say, yeah, it was probably a 5 for me.
Okay, I'm more with Cooks. I would say 4, maybe 4.5. But let's hope in the next few weeks it'll go 6, 7, 8, 9. Who knows? Right. Our last question is, well, it's quite a good question from Carl again. Bournemouth, Liverpool, Newcastle, Chelsea, and Forest. How many points are we taking from our next 5 games? And everyone in the chat room, if you let me know, I will put it up on the screen too. So you got Bournemouth away, Liverpool home, Newcastle away. I don't know about Chelsea and Forest. Are we away or home? I don't know.
Chelsea's away.
And Forest must be home
Chelsea's
then, maybe.
away. Forest is at home.
The Newcastle away is going to be interesting after everything that happened last year. They're going to go into a cauldron at Newcastle. Absolutely, these players need to stand up in Newcastle.
It's happening the same weekend that it happened last season as well.
Is it the same weekend? Yeah. So I was on the radio the next morning a year ago going ballistic with that bloke from Newcastle then. God, that was a year. So come on, what do we think? Points
13
wise?
points. 13.
11.
So you're going 13 out of 15, yeah? Right, I should write this down actually. And where's the draw coming?
I think it could be at Chelsea again. One of Chelsea or Newcastle.
So you're going Chelsea, Newcastle, maybe. Okay. Christopher.
11. I think we're going to get 3 points away to Bournemouth. I think we're going to get a point at home to Liverpool.
Just to let you know before you make your points, Forest is at home. Just to let you know, okay?
Yeah. I think we're going to get a point. So I think we're going to win at Newcastle. That's a 12:30 kickoff as well, remember. So maybe a little bit more sleepy. Maybe there won't be the atmosphere like an evening kickoff. So I think we're going to get 3 points there. That takes us to 7. I think we'll get a draw against Chelsea, which takes us to 8, because they're in form, actually, and they're playing quite well, to be fair to them. And then I think we'll beat Forest, which is 9, 10, 11.
Okay, hold on. Let me just put them up. 13 from Simon, 15 from Fiona, 13 from Sean, 13 from Fiona. Oh, Fiona's changed her mind. It's interesting, isn't it, that we're all sort of really positive, because that's not a bad score. Yours is a little bit less, Chris, but you're being realistic, I suppose. Okay, I'm going to put my neck on the line.
I'm the pessimist of this group, as we know.
You are, yeah. It doesn't matter. I'm going to put my neck on the line here and say 15. I'm confident. I did this last year and I was right. So let's hope I'm right again. I think you might be right about Newcastle with it being 12:30. I still think it'll be a cauldron, but maybe not as much if it would be a 4:30 or a 8 o'clock kickoff. I think we can get 15 points from all 5 games. And generally,
can I just build on that? Can I just build on that for a second? So I think, and Carl asked the question, his standard question that he always asks about who's going to win the league. And my response to that is probably ask me after Newcastle. Because if we beat Bournemouth, if we beat Liverpool at home, and then if we go to St James's Park and beat Newcastle, I mean, I tell you what, we beat Chelsea, pick up 15 points, and I think we'll definitely win the league, because we'll have played Chelsea away, Tottenham away, Man City away. We'll have hopefully beaten Liverpool at home. Like, that's a marker. You get to that point in the season and you've won that many games. That is a marker. But that's going to be end of October, beginning of November is really, really tough.
I honestly, if we get 11 points or 15, I still wouldn't be sitting here saying we've lost the league or won the league. It's October. We talk about this March, I think, but that's, again, I'm a little bit pessimistic with that, because I thought last year that City would win it, and I've gone for Arsenal this year. You are right that if we do get 15 points, it will be a massive thing, but I think City are going to match us the whole way along. I think the pivotal game comes when City comes to Arsenal as well. I mean, listen, we're in a position where most Arsenal fans are saying 13 or 15 points. That's incredible. That's how positive Arsenal fans are feeling at the moment. So it's all good. And will we go unbeaten?
No.
Look at you two. Come on. There's a chance.
No, there's not.
The league is not the same as it was in 2004. This is a flipping hard league. This is the technical quality of the teams in this league compared to back then. Totally different.
Yeah, and I get that. And I'm being a bit facetious because I don't think we'll go unbeaten. I'm not sitting here saying we will, but I do believe we'll get 15 points. We shall see. I don't have any more questions, I don't think. Let's have a look. No more. We're done for a Sunday.
All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for listening. Hopefully you've enjoyed it as much as we've enjoyed it. I quite enjoy that we don't have to do, well, we haven't so far been doing catharsis pods where we have to sort of, do a collective group hug because we're all a bit sad. It's very different from when we were doing this 3-4 years ago, isn't it? I'm quite enjoying this at the moment. Arsenal are up there. We are challenging. There is still much more football to be played. Thank you very much to everyone that's joined us. Thank you very much to Ruth Beck, who is, of course, the sponsor of our podcast. Amanda, would you like to wrap us up, and then we can go and enjoy the rest of our Sundays? I'm going to make a Sunday roast this evening.
How lovely. Well, boys, I hope you have a great Sunday. It's a good Sunday for us. We're still doing well. I wish everyone well. Thanks all for your lovely messages. I'm getting better. It's fine. We'll all be right as rain in a few more days. So we will be back after the Bournemouth game. Don't know when, but please look out. Please subscribe. Please press like. And please, if you're listening on audio, please review us and click 5 stars if you like us. It just really helps to grow our channel, and we get bigger and better guests on, even though we love our guests. We will be doing guests podcast coming up shortly. Might even do one over the international break to break the boredom. But thank you for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and remember, always Arsenal. Goodbye, everyone.